The series begins with the introduction of a charming woman named Duri, who captivates everyone who sees her. It's not only her beauty that draws people in, but also the delicious taste of her dishes. It was revealed that Duri owns a raw food restaurant that has gone viral across Korea. Another unique quality of Duri is her ability to read tarot cards for romance. Every day, one lucky person is chosen to enter the private room in her restaurant, where Duri shuffles her tarot cards and invites the guest to pick. Thanks to her remarkable skill in reading tarot, customers eagerly line up for a chance at this experience. The story then flashes back to 7 years earlier, when Duri was extremely popular on her college campus. Known as the campus goddess, she enchanted everyone with her beauty and often dated different people. Returning to the present, we see Duri busy cooking while her restaurant overflows with customers, each hoping to be the one selected for a tarot reading from her. That evening, two friends named Mina and Ji-yun are the lucky ones chosen. Duri shuffles the tarot cards and invites Ji-yun to pick 3 cards. After Ji-yun makes her choice, Duri interprets them and reveals that a challenging situation awaits Ji-yun in her love life. Hearing this, Ji-yun breaks down in tears, confessing that her relationship with her boyfriend has been troubled lately. Apparently, she feels neglected, as her boyfriend often claims to be busy, even though he used to visit her no matter how busy he was. Because of this, Ji-yun suspects he might be seeing someone else. Hearing this, Duri notices the suspicious expression on Mina's face as Ji-yun cries. Meanwhile, in the house next to Duri's, a nerdy man appears frustrated. It turns out that the wall between Duri's house and his is very thin. Even the sound of casual conversation is audible, let alone Ji-yun's loud sobbing. This man, named Woo Bin, is the CEO of an underwear brand who has rented this modest house to find peace of mind. However, on his very first night there, Woo Bin finds himself irritated rather than relaxed due to the noise from Duri's house. Frustrated by the noise, he pounds on the wall, hoping to silence them. Unaware of her new neighbor, Duri assumes it's just construction noise and ignores it. Unable to find a solution, Woo Bin decides to wear headphones, blasting the volume to block out the noise. The next morning, Woo Bin wakes up on time with his alarm. He has breakfast and gets ready for work, transforming from his nerdy look into a charming, sharp figure in a tailored suit. However, Woo Bin feels that suits are hot and restrictive, so he prefers comfortable clothing at home. At the same time, Duri also wakes up and prepares to go somewhere. In contrast to Woo Bin's tidy home, Duri's lovely house looks rather messy. In short, Woo Bin meets with his secretary named Taekyong, a cheerful person who looks up to Woo Bin as a role model. At that moment, Taekyong hands a proposal to Woo Bin, which includes profiles of beautiful women proposed as models for their company's underwear line. As he reviews the models, Woo Bin feels they look overly sexy. He prefers models who appear beautiful, cheerful, and subtly sexy, as their brand emphasizes simple and comfortable designs. Overly sexy models seem too much for Woo Bin's taste. Meanwhile, outside Woo Bin's office, Duri has arrived looking for someone. She then recalls a moment from the previous night when Ji-yun went to the restroom. During that time, Duri asked Mina about Ji-yun's boyfriend, to which Mina nervously revealed that the boyfriend's name is Sung-woo, and he works at an underwear company. Sung-woo is described as a handsome man with neatly combed hair who always carries a tablet. Back in the present, Duri spots Woo Bin in the office and, noticing his features, assumes that Woo Bin is Sung-woo. She then approaches Woo Bin and pretends to be a writer for a show called WBC Love Nature. With a touch of flirtation, Duri asks Woo Bin for his phone number. While Duri has a sneaky plan to trap him, Woo Bin has different thoughts entirely. He imagines Duri as a potential model for his underwear brand. Her beautiful, cheerful, and slightly sexy appearance fits exactly what he's looking for. In this moment of surprise, Woo Bin accepts Duri's phone number. Later, while sweeping at her restaurant, Duri recalls the events from the previous night. It turns out she had also read a tarot card from Mina. The card she drew was the Fool, reversed, which suggests a personality that is deceitful and two-faced. Mina was silent at the time, seemingly absorbing the message. Returning to the present, Du-ri suggests to Ji-yeon that they visit her boyfriend's office without any prior notice. To Ji-yeon's shock, she sees her boyfriend getting cozy with Min-ah. Heartbroken, Ji-yeon can only cry as she watches her best friend betray her by stealing her boyfriend. Seeing Ji-yeon's painful love story unfold, Du-ri recalls her own past. It was revealed that Du-ri also had once been in Ji-yeon's position. While on a bus, she had witnessed her boyfriend being affectionate with her friend. Back in the present, Du-ri pulls Ji-yeon forward to confront Sungwoo and Min-ah openly. Du-ri hopes that Ji-yeon won't experience the deep sorrow she once did. Upon getting caught, Sungwoo quickly escapes, leaving only Min-ah behind. Too shocked by the situation, Ji-yeon remains speechless and eventually walks away from her friend. When Du-ri returns to her restaurant, she happens to spot Woo-bin in his nerdy appearance. Finding his face unfamiliar, Du-ri greets him and asks who he is. Woo-bin is surprised, as they had met earlier that morning at the office. At that moment, he realizes that his nerdy look and his polished office appearance are indeed very different, which is why Du-ri doesn't recognize him. Instead of explaining himself, Woo-bin asks Du-ri about her restaurant. While they talk, Du-ri's attention is drawn to the box Woo-bin is holding. At that moment, Woo-bin is holding a box of woman undergarment. Confused, Du-ri wonders why a nerdy man would be carrying so much bras. Because of this, she starts to think Woo-bin might be a pervert. She even yells and accidentally knocks the box, sending it flying so that the undergarments scatter in the air. However, in a dramatic moment, Woo-bin catches Du-ri as she almost falls, and one of the bras lands on Du-ri's chest. Casually, Woo-bin removes the bra from her chest, clearly annoyed that his new product has been scattered. He then asks Du-ri to help him collect the fallen bras. Though she finds Woo-bin odd, Du-ri feels responsible and helps him. While helping, Du-ri picks up one of the bras and holds it to her chest in curiosity. Without thinking, Woo-bin blurts out that Du-ri's size is likely 75B or 34B in the US stunt. Du-ri assumes Woo-bin has been fantasizing about her chest size. Therefore, she yells in surprise and runs back into her restaurant. Once inside, Du-ri even imagines that Woo-bin might be a crossdresser. To shake off the unsettling thought, Du-ri starts singing loudly to distract herself with her voice, carrying all the way to Woo-bin's house. Woo-bin is thoroughly frustrated by the noise from Du-ri. He tried to pound on the wall, but Du-ri doesn't hear him. Finally, he resorts to putting on his headphones and cranking up the volume. The next morning, Du-ri and Woo-bin meet again outside their houses, and Du-ri finally realizes that Woo-bin is her new neighbor. Later, while cleaning her restaurant, Du-ri receives a message from Ji-yeon, saying that she plans to meet with Sungwoo and Min-ah that day. It was revealed that Ji-yeon doesn't want to lose her friendship and feels they need to talk things over to find a solution. Hearing this, Du-ri recalls her past. Back then, Du-ri had a close friend named Woo-ju, and their friendship was smooth. However, Du-ri's beauty often drew all the attention, leaving Woo-ju feeling slightly saddened by constantly being in her friend's shadow. At that time, Du-ri had a boyfriend named Gi-kwang, and they had a good relationship. Until one day, Gi-kwang decided to break up with Du-ri. He explained that his mother had consulted a tarot card reader who warned that they were incompatible and that their relationship would lead to death for one of them if it continued. Because of this, Du-ri was devastated that a tarot reading could bring an end to their relationship. Back in the present, Ji-yeon, Sungwoo, and Min-ah meet. At that moment, Sungwoo tells Ji-yeon he can't be with her because he finds her too clingy. Not only that, Min-ah also apologizes deeply and truly regrets her actions, yet she chooses to stay with Sungwoo. In the midst of this tense exchange, Du-ri arrives, visibly angry and carrying her groceries. She then picks up a glass, intending to throw it at Sungwoo, but before she can, Ji-yeon takes Du-ri's groceries and hurls them into Sungwoo's face before she walks away. Later that day, Woo-bin stops by Du-ri's restaurant and orders a raw food dish. While waiting for his meal, he looks through photos of potential models on his tablet. Although he's only reviewing candidates for an upcoming campaign, Du-ri, already suspicious that Woo-bin might be a pervert, becomes even more convinced after seeing this. Shortly after, a couple enters the restaurant, and to Du-ri's surprise, it's her ex, Gi-kwang, and her old friend, Woo-ju. In front of Du-ri, Wooju announces that she and Gi Kwang are soon to be married. At that moment, Gi Kwang looks nervous, clearly feeling guilty. Years ago, Gi Kwang had secretly cheated on Du-ri with Wooju. When he broke up with Du-ri, he claimed it was because his mother had seen their fate in the tarot cards. Moments later, Du-ri remembers crying loudly on a bus after unexpectedly catching Gi Kwang and Wooju in a passionate embrace, disturbing the other passengers with her heartbreak. Returning to the present, Woo Bin notices Du-ri gripping his hand tightly. He realizes that she's holding back intense emotions. Not wanting to intrude, Woo Bin asks for his order to be wrapped up quickly, then heads home, thinking that perhaps Du-ri needs some time alone. The next day, Du-ri is chopping onions, wearing a pair of dark sunglasses and a hat. Once she's finished, she carefully places the sacred sunglasses and hat back into a box. The scene then flashes back to the day on the bus when Du-ri was crying. During this time, a young man suddenly approached her out of sympathy. This mysterious stranger offered his hat to her to help hide her tears. Just as she was about to leave, feeling disoriented from her swollen eyes, the stranger returned and handed her his sunglasses. Still shaken, Du-ri didn't get a good look at his face, nor did she get a chance to return the hat and sunglasses before he left. In the present, Woo Bin and Taekyong are out cycling together, with Taekyong mimicking Woo Bin's nerdy style. Taekyong idolizes Woo Bin and draws inspiration from him, but Woo Bin constantly creates boundaries between them as CEO and secretary. He's visibly uncomfortable with Taekyong's habit of imitating him and being overly casual. Hearing this, Taekyong promises to act professionally at work, but insists on being friends outside office hours, not wanting any distance between them. With a playfully cute attitude, Taekyong tries to convince Woo Bin to join him for drinks, hoping to share his romantic troubles. Annoyed by Taekyong's forced cuteness, Woo Bin leaves him behind. At the restaurant, Du-ri is met with Wooju, who hands her a wedding invitation. Wooju hopes that Du-ri will attend the wedding with a partner and, in a subtly condescending way, questions if Du-ri even has a boyfriend. At the same time, Wooju's comments are overheard by Woo Bin, who coincidentally arrives at the restaurant at that moment. Seeing Du-ri's discomfort, Woo Bin steps in and pretends to be her boyfriend. Du-ri is taken aback, but she goes along with his lie, and together they put on an affectionate act in front of Wooju. In the middle of their pretend romance, Taekyong suddenly arrives and witnesses the scene. Shocked and misinterpreting the situation, he assumes that Woo Bin has a girlfriend. Taekyong then introduces himself to Du-ri as Woo Bin's secretary, much to Woo Bin's embarrassment over his overly familiar behavior. Woo Bin quickly pulls him aside and leaves the restaurant. Outside, Taekyong recalls that Du-ri is the woman who previously came to the company, claiming to be a writer for WBC Love Nature. Taekyong is highly curious about how Du-ri and Woo Bin became a couple. He's also slightly irritated, thinking Woo Bin has been meeting women behind his back. However, Woo Bin clarifies that things aren't as Taekyong thinks. Looking at himself in a mirror, Woo Bin realizes just how nerdy he appears. He's surprised he could confidently pretend to be Du-ri's boyfriend, looking like that, an image that hardly suits being a CEO. Back at the restaurant, Woo Bin watches Du-ri from outside. He sees her wearing her sacred sunglasses and is reminded of 7 years ago. It turns out that the mysterious man who gave her the hat and sunglasses on the bus was actually Woo Bin. Back then, he had felt sympathy for the girl crying in the seat across from him. Now he smiles, feeling grateful to reconnect with Du-ri, the girl he comforted all those years ago. The next day, Woo Bin meets Taekyong at the office. At that moment, Taekyong is still curious about the previous night's events. However, Woo Bin explains that he only pretended to be Du-ri's boyfriend to help her out. To change the subject, Woo Bin asks about the marketing report. As a result, Taekyong nervously scrambles to fetch the files, but still unsatisfied with Woo Bin's vague explanation, he resolves to investigate further. Later on, Taekyong visits Du-ri's restaurant. He waits until it's quiet, and then invites Du-ri out for drinks. Taekyong then brings a selection of alcohol, and together they enjoy the drinks, which Du-ri finds pleasantly smooth. They drink until they're both a bit tipsy, even singing together. During this time, Taekyong happens to notice the sunglasses on top of Du-ri's head. He immediately recognizes them. Apparently, Taekyong has always imitates Woo Bin's style, yet one thing he could never replicate was owning Woo Bin's luxurious sunglasses. As a result, Taekyong is puzzled as to how Do-ri has them. Later, Do-ri reads Taekyong's tarot cards, revealing that he has a bright future ahead. However, Taekyong is so fixated on the sunglasses that he offers to trade his future card for Do-ri's sunglasses. Naturally, Do-ri refuses. She treasures the sunglasses deeply, as they are a gift from the mysterious man who helped her in the past. In his drunken state, Taekyong calls Woo Bin to question him about the sunglasses. Realizing that Taekyong and Do-ri are both drunk together, Woo Bin decides to check on them. Upon arriving, they both babble in front of Woo Bin, claiming to be siblings. A tipsy Do-ri also boasts about being an incredibly beautiful woman. Her cute drunken antics make Woo Bin smile. Caught in the moment, Woo Bin leans closer to Do-ri, commenting on the sunglasses perched on her head. The closeness and eye contact make Do-ri nervous. As she regains her senses, Do-ri realizes that the mysterious man from 7 years ago is actually Woo Bin. She thanks him sincerely for helping her that day. Woo Bin then gently asks Do-ri not to wear the sunglasses only when she's sad. He hopes she'll wear them only on bright, sunny days, which makes Do-ri smile, touched by his sincerity. The next morning, Do-ri and Woo Bin meet again outside their houses. This time, Woo Bin is in his office attire, a sharp black suit and tie. When he approaches Do-ri, she doesn't recognize him and even assumes that the well-dressed Woo Bin in front of her and the nerdy Woo Bin from the previous night are twins. Before he can explain, Woo Bin receives an urgent call from work and has to leave, leaving Do-ri confused. Sometime later, some unpleasant customers, former colleagues of Do-ri, arrive at her restaurant. Seeing them, Do-ri recalls her past as a writer for WBC Love Managers. At that time, her beauty was striking in the company, and many guest stars were charmed by her, making it easy for her to secure collaborations. However, a woman named Hyo-jong grew jealous and started rumors, accusing Do-ri of being a secret woman with multiple boyfriends. Hyo-jong even cornered Do-ri, saying that their program could collapse if news spread about Do-ri being a playgirl. Because of these rumors, Do-ri's career at WBC was ruined. Back in the present, Hyo-jong and her colleagues visit the restaurant, and Do-ri can only force a polite smile to welcome them. During this time, Hyo-jong boldly asks Do-ri to return to the company, admitting that their program hasn't been doing well since her resignation. Not only that, Hyo-jong also hopes Do-ri will help her, reminding her that as a senior, she expects respect from her. Do-ri, however, ignores her, which angers Hyo-jong. In her outburst, Hyo-jong accidentally causes a nosebleed for one of her colleagues in the commotion. During the commotion, Woo Bin arrives at the restaurant, causing everyone to fall silent at his presence. Realizing he may have arrived at a bad time, Woo Bin politely excuses himself to leave. However, Hyo-jong quickly recognizes him as Woo Bin, the CEO of the lingerie company. After he leaves, Do-ri politely asks Hyo-jong and her friends to leave as well. Later, with some leftover ingredients in the kitchen, Do-ri decides to bring a dish over to Woo Bin. Soon after, she arrives at his house, but at that moment, Woo Bin is in the shower. With no other option, he tells her to go ahead and place the food on the table. Once inside, Do-ri is startled by the neatly arranged lingerie in Woo Bin's home. She recalls her previous assumption that Woo Bin might be a pervert. Nervously, she looks around at the lingerie, and shortly after, Woo Bin emerges from the bathroom, wearing only a towel. Startled, Do-ri screams at the sight. After getting dressed, Woo Bin explains that he is the CEO of a lingerie company, which is why his home is filled with the latest bra models. Embarrassed, Do-ri realizes she had completely misunderstood him. She also finally understands that the nerdy man and the polished Woo Bin she's seen are not twins, but the same person. In the end, she hands him the food she brought. The next day, Hyo-jong is seen telling her colleagues that Do-ri will be rejoining their team. She plans to use Woo Bin as her next target. Soon after, Hyo-jong meets with Woo Bin at a cafe, attempting to recruit him for her show. To convince him, she even brings up Do-ri's name as leverage. However, Woo Bin, ever professional and distant, bluntly rejects her offer, stating that his relationship with Du-ri has nothing to do with work. He even puts Hyo-jong in her place for her shameless behavior. Humiliated, Hyo-jong storms into Du-ri's restaurant, loudly questioning her about her relationship with Woo-bin. At that moment, Du-ri firmly responds that Woo-bin is just her neighbor. Frustrated with Hyo-jong's disrespectful attitude, Du-ri decides to abandon her politeness and firmly asks Hyo-jong to leave. Elsewhere, Taekyong questions Woo-bin about the sunglasses that Du-ri owns. Woo-bin then reveals that Du-ri is the girl from 7 years ago whom he once helped. Taekyong is overjoyed, thrilled that Woo-bin has finally reunited with the special girl from his past. When he asks how things are progressing between them, Woo-bin admits that there is no official relationship yet. This indicates that Woo-bin has indeed developed feelings for Du-ri and is preparing to confess his love. One evening, Woo-bin musters the courage to knock on the wall separating his room from Du-ri's. Realizing that he could hear her all this time, Du-ri is surprised but then engages in a long conversation with him, sharing thoughts while enjoying the quiet of the night. Sometime later, Taekyong is working online at a cafe when a beautiful barista named Ah-young offers him an extra cup of coffee. Feeling special, Taekyong immediately develops a crush on her, though he doesn't get a chance to introduce himself. Meanwhile, as Du-ri returns from the market, her groceries accidentally spill. Soon, a handsome man approaches and kindly offers to help her carry the bags. He even mentions he'd like to visit Du-ri's restaurant with some friends, delighting her with his friendly manner. While Du-ri chats with the man, Taekyong arrives and greets them. He takes the man's hand, commenting warmly that he has a good aura for friendship. After that, the man graciously says goodbye, and Taekyong helps Du-ri carry her bags to the restaurant. Upon reaching the restaurant, they find it surrounded by a crowd. Du-ri is initially puzzled, as the restaurant hasn't opened yet. To her shock, she realizes the people are reporters asking about a rumor that she is the reason behind a celebrity's decline in popularity. Stunned, Du-ri is unable to comment. With the restaurant no longer safe from the media, Taekyong brings Du-ri to Woo-bin's office and explains the situation to him. As they discuss, Du-ri recalls Hyo-jong and suspects she's the mastermind behind this scandal. Her hunch proved to be correct, as Hyo-jong deliberately spread the rumor to make Du-ri feel guilty for allegedly causing the celebrity's downfall. Fortunately, one of Du-ri's allies in the office saw Hyo-jong typing the fake gossip and took a photo as evidence. Later, with her signature confidence and unwavering poise, Du-ri strides into WBC's office. She walks straight into the meeting room and immediately slaps Hyo-jong across the face with an octopus. She then warns Hyo-jong not to mess with her again. Having successfully embarrassed the deceitful Hyo-jong, Du-ri then invites Woo-bin and Taekyong out for drinks. After Taekyong leaves, Woo-bin asks Du-ri to take a walk with him to enjoy the cool night air. During this time, they stroll together, both feeling slightly shy yet drawn to each other, an awkward tension lingering in the air. In short, Du-ri asks Woo-bin to head home early as she needs to pick something up at the restaurant. Once she's alone, Gi-kwang suddenly shows up, startling her. Drunk, Gi-kwang says he just wants to say hello, and he admits he feels deeply guilty for what he did to her. Just as he's about to explain everything, Woo-ju calls him, interrupting his intentions. As a result, while staggering, Gi-kwang finally heads home. The next day, Taekyong returns to the cafe, hoping to see Ah-young, the charming barista. Unfortunately, he learns that yesterday was her last day. At that moment, Sung-woo mentions that Ah-young was hired at a lingerie company, coincidentally, the same company where Taekyong works. However, Taekyong doesn't catch this part of the conversation and leaves feeling down, retreating to the rooftop to shout out his frustration. All day, Taekyong is too distracted to work properly. Later, Sung-woo introduces Ah-young to him, requesting that Taekyong mentor her. Overjoyed to see her, Taekyong can hardly believe that Ah-young is now working at his company. Proud to be her senior, he eagerly prepares to guide her through the company's protocols. That night, Woo-bin and Du-ri talk through their shared wall again. After a long conversation, Woo-bin finally confesses his feelings for Du-ri. Without hesitation, Du-ri replies that she likes him too. Hearing this, Woo-bin rushes to her front door, wanting to hear her say it again. Unexpectedly, without any shyness or doubt, Du-ri also repeats her feelings, and Woo-bin immediately kisses her. The next day, Woo-bin eagerly prepares for a date with Du-ri. However, when he arrives at her restaurant, he finds that Taekyung has already shown up, inadvertently disrupting their date. Du-ri then invites Taekyung to pick a tarot card. Unfortunately, the card reveals a negative fortune, suggesting that Taekyung is about to be financially drained. This reminds Taekyung of a past relationship in which he dated a sweet, pretty girl who constantly asked him to buy things for her, even paying for her cosmetic surgery. Despite being taken advantage of, Taekyung complied out of love. In the end, her love for him was only about the money, and she eventually left him for another man after draining his funds. Back in the present, Taekyung grows anxious, fearing that his past heartbreak will repeat itself. Nonetheless, he reassures himself that Ah-young is different and wouldn't take advantage of him. After Taekyung leaves, Woo-bin and Du-ri continue their date that evening. Sometime later, Gi-kwang and Woo-ju return to Du-ri's restaurant with the intent of upsetting her. However, Woo-ju realizes that Gi-kwang is feeling an overwhelming sense of guilt toward Du-ri. A flashback reveals that Gi-kwang and Woo-ju were initially bothered by Du-ri's deep belief in tarot readings. To steer her away from this obsession, Woo-ju persuaded Gi-kwang to lie to Du-ri, claiming that his mother had consulted a tarot reader. At first, Woo-ju and Gi-kwang simply wanted Du-ri to stop obsessing over tarot. However, this led to the end of Gi-kwang and Du-ri's relationship. Spending more time together afterward, Woo-ju and Gi-kwang fell in love and began a real affair, which eventually led to their engagement. Returning to the present, Woo-ju and Gi-kwang continue arguing over the guilt they carry about Du-ri. Finally, they leave her restaurant in frustration. Meanwhile, Taekyung is thrilled when Ah-young joins him on the office rooftop. Unexpectedly, Ah-young asks if she can borrow money from him, the exact scenario Du-ri's tarot reading had predicted. Taekyung is instantly heartbroken, fearing Ah-young might be just like his former girlfriend. Though it's difficult, Taekyung tries to move on from Ah-young. While he struggles with heartbreak, Woo-bin and Du-ri share a kiss at the restaurant. Over time, Taekyung remains downcast and gloomy, enough that Woo-bin becomes worried about him. Some time later, while Taekyung is relaxing on the rooftop, Sungwoo suddenly brings Ah-young over to him. At that moment, Sungwoo explains the situation at the office, where Ah-young is responsible for processing employee payments, and she had accidentally deposited an extra amount into Taekyung's account. It was revealed that on the day when she approached him on the rooftop, she was actually trying to clarify this mistake. Taekyung, misinterpreting her words at the time, thought she was asking to borrow money. In reality, Ah-young had simply been asking him to return the extra amount he'd received. Upon hearing the clarification, Taekyung is overjoyed, realizing it was all just a misunderstanding. He resumes his affection for Ah-young, as it turns out, has also developed feelings for him. In the end, a genuine relationship blossomed between them. Meanwhile, good news also finds Du-ri. The scandalous article involving her has been cleared, thanks to her loyal restaurant patrons who defended her online and praised her character. With this support, Du-ri's name is restored. Sometime later, on the day of Gi-kwang and Woo-ju's wedding, Gi-kwang unexpectedly runs away from the ceremony to visit Du-ri's restaurant. He confesses his lingering guilt for lying to her back then. Soon after, Woo-ju arrives, deeply disappointed in Gi-kwang for his confession. She then admits that she, too, has not been at peace, burdened by her guilt toward Du-ri. As a result, in tears, Woo-ju offers a heartfelt apology. The emotional moment touches Du-ri's heart. She has missed her friend deeply. Kind-hearted as ever, Du-ri forgives Woo-ju, and the two embrace, rekindling their friendship. In the final scene, Du-ri and Woo-bin walk side by side, their love story unfolding beautifully. Together, they decide to tear down the thin wall between their rooms, choosing to live together with nothing dividing them. Moral lesson from the story: when life hands you a loud neighbor and a box of lingerie, just remember, sometimes love starts with a wall knock and ends with shared headphones and misplaced bras.